I've done so well and the guy's always on my tail. I have a love-hate relationship with feedback loops, but so going back to Left 4 Dead, like, does it have a negative, do you think the AI game director is a negative feedback loop or a positive feedback loop? Or just a really vindictive son of a bitch? Like, how many times playing on expert and trying to win and you just get beat up, and then the next time you spawn in, there's like less weapons than before, right? And you're just like, oh God, why are they doing this to me? So I don't know, actually. Maybe it's neither. Maybe it's just changes the pacing, you know? But I'd like to figure that one out. Sometimes you don't have a feedback loop, but keep in mind that they may exist whether you consciously designed it or not. If you're playing an economic simulation and you get more money, that money allows you to take more risks and invest in more things and perhaps do more things that are going to enable you to get more money. So there's a positive feedback loop whether or not you intended to include it or not. Other examples of feedback loops, this is a good one. It's always my favorite. In games. Anybody have an idea? What's that?
Modern Warfare.
Modern Warfare?
You get XP, you get given challenges, which then makes you get more XP.
Yeah. Yeah, like if you've been playing the game for a while and presumably gotten good at it, I guess, by achieving, you know, gaining certain achievements or experience points, you're going to get better and you're given a little more, or, you know, like, yeah, Team Fortress where, hey, you know, by playing a lot and presumably gaining some skill in doing so, I now have the flare gun. This gives me more tactical options, things like that. Feedback, you know, it's one of your tools. Another type is bad. It really depends on what type of game you're making. You know, Mario Kart versus Civilization, two very different games, so two very different uses. Okay, we're about to get to, oh yeah, this one's fun. So transitive, this everybody knows transitive and intransitive relationships, even though we don't use those terms very much. Tank beats horse, horse beats guy. What does tank do to guy? Does tank beat guy or get beat by a guy? Yeah, it runs over guy, yeah. You know, tank beats horse, horse beats guy, therefore it's pretty logical that a tank will kill a guy. Intransitive is, it's not linear like that. So these are things like tank beats horse, horse beats guy, guy beats tank because guy can sneak up and plant the charge right in the treads and blow it up. So the thing here is transitive relationships are one of my favorite things. They're not boring. Just because they're simple, they're not boring. It's logical that a tank should beat guy, right? The other thing is, as a designer, you know, you're familiar with the concept of dominant and dominated strategies. From a game theory perspective, a dominant strategy is one that you would always do better to choose that strategy than the alternatives. Always, like 100% of the time. There's no situation. So in this case, if you were saying tank is dominant to cavalry, from a game theory standpoint, you would be saying that there's no situation where you should ever choose a horse if you could choose a tank instead. But what you have to be careful as a designer is factor in all the things. Like, what about availability? Like, it's not a dominant strategy if you're limited in availability. Like, what if I need petroleum to make a tank, right? And I need horses to make cavalry, I guess. If I don't have availability, well, it's not a dominant strategy. Yeah, I'd choose a tank, but I don't have the choice. Another thing would be, what if the tank is twice as strong as the horse, but costs 5 times as much? Like, from a game theory standpoint, if you break that into a decision matrix, it'll show that that's not a dominant strategy. So those are things to keep in mind. Intransitive, what is it? You know, rock, paper, scissors. Because everybody knows rock, paper, scissors, but everybody does not know rock, paper, scissors, lizard, Spock, do they? Unless you watch Big Bang Theory or whatever. This is awesome, this like paper disproves Spock. That's my favorite part of that one. It's logical, right? So I mean, you could remember it, especially that there's that kind of memorable cue. What is it? Spock vaporizes rock. What is this one? Poison. Lizard poisons Spock. That's pretty awesome. But in practice, and I never want to be quoted as saying this, but in general, you have to assume the players are kind of dumb. Really, they're smarter than you because they'll find all the holes in the game that you didn't find, and you're being paid to do it. But 5 is an awful lot to remember. Like 3, you know, 3, maybe it's just me, but I can't, it's hard to remember 3 sometimes these days. So they add a lot of strategy. They add that circular thing. You know, what would StarCraft be if it was a transitive versus an intransitive relationship? Pretty dull. You know, the whole beauty of that and the way that those strategies evolved was, oh my God, there's a Zergling rush. Okay, well this can counter that, right? And you just goes around in circles until you find the thing that counters the other thing. And this was my favorite tidbit when I was reviewing this presentation. It's like, what was I thinking? But no, I did find, I looked up rock, paper, scissors on Google, or no, Wikipedia, right? Read the little entry, because I got to act knowledgeable, right? It's not like I know anything about this stuff. Lizard mayhems. There's some like lizard species. Let's just say Galapagos, because it sounds believable. But no, it's like the something spotted lizard. And when the males try to impress the females, it's like the blue lizard always dominates the orange lizard, and the orange lizard dominates the yellow lizard, and the yellow lizard dominates the blue lizard. I don't know how they figured this stuff out, but I thought it was a cool tidbit. So if nothing else, remember the goal of this presentation is have one little thing. So there's your thing. Just grab onto that one, take that one home. Utility is one of my favorite concepts in terms of game design. What do you want out of the game? What does your player want out of the game? Game theory will teach you what a dominant strategy is, or what, it really helps with some of the design, but you need to keep in mind the utility of what a player's after. Utility is just a fancy name for what do I want. When I asked, do you like cookies? If you don't like cookies, the game breaks. Like the whole idea is you break it, the other guy has the choice. If you like cookies, you're going to do it in a way to maximize your potential gain. Or when we did the money game, if you don't care about money, then that game kind of breaks down. And basically, game theory for a while hit a rut somewhere in the 60s or something, with rationality, this concept that players always act rationally, and that's how you can break something down in theory. And the reality is they act rationally, but to their own kind of desire. I did an article on Gamma Sutra some time ago, and then one of the guys at work did this illustration. But basically, there's a lot of different types of players. They all want different things. I see my friend Eric in the audience. We were playing a board game the other day, and he had a chance to win. It was like a really risky strategy to win. He could either win or with people, and he with people. And it was cool. Like, basically get some revenge, put the Kraken down. Like, this was a board game, Cyclotics. And, but it was kind of cool. Like, he had a chance to win it, and no, he would rather sacrifice everything for the chance to sink someone's boats and maraud the Kraken around the game board. And that was cool. Like, and there's a lot of game mechanic design tips that you can keep in mind, and kind of game feature tips, by keeping in mind that utility, people are not rational according to what you may think. They're rational in their own world. It's that old, like, the best villains are those who are rational to their own desires, right? So it's something to keep in mind. I want to read you 2 quotes, and then we'll end here on the subject of utility, which is, this is from Alice in Wonderland. I don't know. Not the movie. There was a book before that. So Alice says, would you tell me, please, which way I ought to go from here? And I think she's talking to the Cheshire Cat. He says, that depends a good deal on where you want to go, said the cat. She said, I don't much care. So he said, then it doesn't really matter which way you go. So the other one that I think applies to utility is from The Gambler, Fyodor Dostoevsky. I don't know how to pronounce that very well, but it's true that only 1 in 100 gamblers wins, but what is that to me? The point being, like, the game theory rational decision of what to do, say in a 1 in 100 chance game, is very different if you want to be that 1 in 100, right? So lastly, this is a game that will be coming out on PlayStation 3 and PSP and PC and Mac. This is what we're doing at Big Sandwich. I couldn't show too much on it because it's still very much in work, and the artist would have shot me and not let me out of the house. So this is PreLamb, but it's about dragons gathering treasure. It will launch in September. Jump Wars meets Sim Kingdom. Yeah, I said that. There's a little taster. So your dragons, you run around, you grab treasure. We'll be announcing end of this month. I'm really excited about it, and I hope maybe keep an eye on the news sources, and if you see something, check it out. So now I think that leaves us with 7 or 8 minutes for questions. The point of the cookie. Good. The point of the cookie was twofold. It was a simple mechanic, but utility. Like, and the concept that, in that case, showing that, I had to ascertain beforehand that both players were interested in the cookie so that they'd act rationally. If I'd chosen 2 people separately, who knows what would have happened. But the other thing is, I just thought it'd be fun. No, I'm a game theory buff. I really love to read about game theory. There's some great references out there. If any of you are interested, you can email me, and I'll give you some books that are just tons of fun of giving examples from everything from, nuclear war standoff, which was a classic example. Game theory, oddly enough, has been used way more in economics and everything else than it has been in game design. But those little exercises are fun.
What games do you think have been a good example of game theory in action?
Diplomacy, the beauty of diplomacy as a board game, if you've played it, is the mechanics are really, really simple. And it's balanced in such a way that everybody needs to win. That's the goal of the game. You're all different countries, and but nobody can win without cooperation from someone else. But but you also can't win without eventually screwing, and not necessarily backstabbing, but the goal is for one person to win, not necessarily a team. And I think that it does a really good example. You can kind of break down like decision matrices. Not that I'm saying players do this on paper, but they think, okay, well, if I partner with this person, invade this country, then this helps me down the road. And it's just the mechanics are so simple. An army is an army. It's not like there's a tank that beats a guy. That armies and navies, everyone is really starved for number of units, and it's just all about those kind of. Everyone has to make their decisions at the same time, so that's what they call like a synchronous game. So it kind of embodies those things pretty well. Yeah.
Hello.
Hi.
Yeah, I was playing diplomacy at a time in class, and what do you think about how about the area where Turkey starts?
A balanced question on diplomacy. The area in Turkey starts. I don't know, man. It's been actually a while since I played diplomacy because it's one of those games where it's so competitive and so intense, and like friendships can almost be ruined over it. That I like to think back fondly to playing diplomacy, but I don't actually like to play it that much. So ask me Axis and Allies question. That's a different story. But one more. Yeah, no, I want to say before we get to the end of this last question that thanks for sitting in. I know there wasn't a lot of show and tell on different games, but I hope that kind of the broad eye view of game mechanics helps you in whatever project that you're working on. And so one more question. Oh.
I just wanted to ask you about you're talking about players aren't always rational, but going back to that first game you have, if the players play enough, isn't the inevitable outcome that they figure out that the best way for them to both win is just keep guessing 10, both of them at the same time, so they both get the max payout between them?
Well, that's a great question, and actually one that the Prisoner's Dilemma, I don't know if any of you are familiar with the Prisoner's Dilemma, but there was a series of wonderful experiments done way back in the 60s on Prisoner's Dilemma and what they call the backward induction paradox. And basically so if you take that assumption, if they both do well by splitting the 10, they each get 5. Now play it again, and he chooses 10 and you choose 9. You get 9. That's way better than 5. So then the next time he knows that, so he chooses 8. So really, you don't do better by doing 10. You do better than if you work your way down and both of you are choosing 1, and then you split 1, you get 50 cents each. So the whole beauty of this collaboration, they call it cooperate or defect. It's kind of the name of the actions that you do. And the backward induction paradox is just awesome because basically they play the game 100 times. And what would happen is they'd cooperate 99 times, and then realize that on the last one they could make a quick kill by defecting. But then the other person's thinking of that, and they realize that if I'm going to do it on the 100th play, I'm going to do it on 99th play before he thinks of it. And then 88, 98, 97, 90, you work your way down to 1. So from a game theory standpoint, and in practice, you just get wild results. So it's actually, you can do better by choosing 9 if he's going to choose 10. So that's the beauty of these dilemmas, they call them, that just basically mess with your mind. It's really fun stuff to read about. So,
Thank you.
Thanks.